Morning, and today we have the last part of the fifth module to cover. So let's look at that. We were doing the access networks, which is one of the deployment strategy for a fiber optic network. So this will basically employ some passive optical components, like a passive splitter or combiner, and these kind of networks have come to be known as passive optical networks or PONs. They were initially referred to as passive since no components were required which needed electrical power. Uh, but now, some of them do require electrical power. And a basic PON structure comprises of three elements. This will connect a service provider to an output device, which is located near customers' premises. You can see there is an optical line terminator, a splitter or demultiplexer, and the networking, so optical networking. So the slide we had discussed yesterday. So the current PON-based networks are basically classified into three parts. We have the ATM PON, A PON, we have broadband PON, B PON, the Ethernet, the gigabit Ethernet, or the gigabit PONs. So these passive optical networks basically will require output device, which is a 1x-N power splitter or power combiner, depending on the application. So let's look at these categories in detail. So we have the ATM PON. It utilizes asynchronous transfer mode, that is what is ATM, and this will be over a structure of the passive optical network. And this will facilitate both voice as well as data, and it will combine the capacity for multiple services. But the bitrate is basically the ATM bitrate, and it is also referred to as the broadband passive optical network, or BPON. So these kind of networks will utilize separate wavelength channels, and the wavelength of operation will be somewhere between 1500 nanometer to 1300 nanometer, and this will carry transmission from line terminals to the network units, that is downstream, and then in the reverse part, the upstream. So for the APONs, the ATM transmission basically is broadcast downstream from OLT to ONE, and the transmission will be upstream. But here the transmission will be granted using a time shared or a TDM approach. Right? But we know that the TDM approach is already not very efficient because it is a static approach. So the data rates basically used are somewhere 155 Mbps upstream and some 600 Mbps downstream. And this is basically the OC3 or optical carrier 12 in SDHF SONET. But such kind of passive optical networks cannot carry IP or Ethernet data packets because that will be bursty or dynamic in nature. Right? However, if you want to deal with the bursty or dynamic nature of data, then the Ethernet PON, EPON, is much efficient. So the EPON diagram is shown in the PON structure is shown in the diagram, and it is able to carry the IP packets via Ethernet frames, and therefore data transmission can occur in variable length packets. Each packet will carry some information of the destination, and hence all packets will arrive in sequential order, okay? And the complete message can then be constructed. So this diagram, which is shown in the slide, is depicting the downstream transmission for Ethernet PON, and data is broadcast from the OLT to multiple ONUs in variable length packets to the three ONUs which we have shown. At the splitter end, the traffic will be coupled to three separate optical fibers, and each of them will carry the same traffic. When the data will reach the ONU, it accepts the packets which will be intended for it and discards the remaining packets. So ONU 1, for example, will receive two packets which are identified as packet 1, and packet 2 and 3 are then discarded. ONU 2 and 3 will receive their intended packet 2 and 3 respectively. So this diagram shows the upstream traffic in the Ethernet PON, and this is managed basically by using the time division multiplexing technique. Transmission slots will be dedicated to each ONU, and therefore there will be no interference once the data is coupled onto a common 5. The example is if ONU3 will transmit packet 3 the first time slot, ONU1 transmits packet 1 in the second non-overlapping time slot, and so on. So the 3 packets which are variable length, right, very important variable length packets. These are TDM interleaved or using TDM technique. Now these will be multiplexed, and the resultant multiplexed signal will then be transmitted to the OLT. Next comes the gigabit passive optical networks. These are high capacity ponds designed basically to facilitate the internet protocol packet transmission rather than the ATM or the Ethernet packets. So the structure basically is shown in the diagram, and the structure is or the configuration is similar to that of the pond and comprises of the OLT, ONUs, and splitter. The ratio of splitting is 1 cross 128. That is the maximum. Now, however, due to the presence of the dispersion, it is known that 1 cross 64 split ratio is the one which is good enough, or most appropriate for longer network spans with the specified transmission distance between ONU and OLT. Now, the gigabit bonds can also support single fiber bidirectional transmission. The transmission rates up to 2.4 Gbps, both upstream and downstream. Then comes the WDM based passive optical networks, and these are the ones which are being deployed these days currently. So basically, these are used to increase the bandwidth of passive optical networks by using WDM techniques, and large bandwidth with the relative basic or moderate complexity can be implemented. So the OLT will comprise of the WDM source and receiving units, which will send and receive WDM signals. And the bandpass filter will be used to separate the optical signals between transmitting and receiving units in the OLT. This OLT will be connected to the RN using a single fiber, and this will carry bidirectional signal transmission. This will enable 2 wavelength bands, one for the downstream and one for the upstream. So the upstream and downstream wavelengths are then denoted lambda 1 to lambda n and lambda n plus 1 lambda 2. So there is no interference. This RN section will incorporate multiplexer and demultiplexer, and will usually use the array waveguide gratings, AWGs, to route the signals from RN to particular ONU. Such WDM bonds will be referred to as the wavelength routed bonds because the wavelengths are being routed from one point to the other. Now, these ONUs will essentially comprise of filter that will separate the incoming and outgoing wavelengths. So the example of this is if ONU1 uses signal wavelength lambda 1 and lambda n for downstream and upstream transmission respectively, right? And so this will not even lead to any interference of the signals. The next is the LR passive optical networks, and this reach can be they can have a reach up to 120 kilometers for overall access. So the feeder section will incorporate the optical amplifier, and the remote node, the RN, will have the splitter and the amplifier, and this will increase the optical signal power to provide greater number of signals. Now the splitter configuration in the distribution section, following the amplified splitter, can have a ratio of 1 cross 128 till 1 cross 2048, or even more depending on the budget or the power budget. This can be configured, the LR PON can be configured using the wavelength routed PON. Potentially, this will enable the MANs, or even in some respect the WANs, or just the core networks. So the local area network, this is the last part, module 5, and this basically covers the OSI model which we have covered previously. So I will not go into the detail of that because the OSI layer has been covered in detail previously. So the LAN basically will be, we can consider them as residential area coverage, used for residential area coverage. And unlike the local telecommunication network, it will be interconnecting topology, usually in a building or group of buildings. And it is operated or controlled by somebody rather than the common carrier. So the fiber communication technology, this will have LANs will meet the communication requirement of large commercial organizations. will enable access to distributed or centralized computing resources. And as I said, they will use the OSI model, which has been explained in detail previously. So one of the aspects of the LANs is the FDDI, which is the fiber distributed data interface, and the architecture of it was made compatible with the OSI model. Therefore, you can see that the FDDI has basically the same structure as the OSI model, and this comes into the IEEE 8.2 structure. And the various blocks will be subject to specific areas within the protocol. Right? So you'll have the physical medium, which is dependent, or you'll have the single mode fiber with polarization mode dependent fibers, physical layer protocol. Then you could have the MAC layer for error correction, error detection, and then the logical link control, and so on. Right? So it basically matches the OSI model. So the physical layer was basically divided into two sublayers. This is the physical medium, the physical layer protocol. The protocol will be used to carry the data over the physical medium, and the medium will obviously be the optical fiber. They will these sublayers will specify the required performance, including the fibers, connectors, and receivers and switches, whichever is being used. Interfacing between the PMD and the data link layer was provided by the physical layer. So therefore, you can have encoding, synchronization, and similarly. Basically, what happens to the data link, and these will could also be also incorporate the MAC layer. So finally, the station management control (SMT). It will control the processes within the station, including from configuration, survivability, fault tolerance, link quality. So this is the diagram of the FDDI. It consists of stations which are connected logically into a ring, and the two contra-rotating rings are employed, each of which capable of supporting 100 Mbps. The FDDI can also physically be installed in a dual ring in the form of a dual tree, so basically a ring architecture. And this will enable duplex point-to-point optical fiber. Uh, the FDDI had inbuilt recovery mechanisms. If there is any fault in the fiber or so, it can recover, and this gives enhanced robustness, and this makes it a protected optical network. So if the ring was broken, then transmission was switched to a secondary ring. So that's one of the techniques which can be used. So if the station failed, that will not affect the network operation due to optical bypass switches and so on. So FDDI was one of the LAN techniques which can be used, and it will be a protected optical network. It can also provide survivability.